I've been joined by the Honorable Councilmember Jack Weiss. This is the Planning and Land Use Committee. The Edward R. Roybal Public Works Room. I have a healthy agenda today. Quite a few public speakers, public comments, and several items that I believe we can move on or continue before we get into the substance of each item. My understanding is that item 2 will be continued till June 16th here in this committee. Item number 5 will be continued till July 21st, and in City Council, hopefully on August 5th. The rest, I believe, will be calling special. I don't see any cards on item 6, actually. Well, yes, I do. Okay. So before we start with item number 1, if we can ask our Director, Gail Goldberg, go to item number 7 and our report, please. Good afternoon.
Thank you very much, Chairman Reyes. As you are probably aware, the major items that we have been dealing with the past couple of weeks, you have been intimately involved with, as has this committee. Our budget, the citywide sign ordinance, the mixed income ordinance, and our department fees are subjects that you all have heard and have been a part of in the past couple of weeks. But I did want to let you know that last Saturday, our Office of Historic Resources held their annual all-day conference for historic preservation overlay zones, and we had about 150 people who showed up and spent the day, and a lot of them are people who are currently on boards, but a lot of interested citizens. We also wanted to let you know that we are starting some new workshops on community plans, and we are expecting to have a couple of workshops on Westlake within the first couple of weeks of June. So we will have one of the workshops on Thursday, June 11th at Esperanza Elementary School, and then on Saturday, June 13th at the 10th Street Elementary School, and these will be workshops on the Westlake Community Plan. I wanted to let you know that we expect to have the Hollywood Community Plan completed by the end of June with both the draft EIR out and the draft document, and we will schedule a number of community meetings to make sure that the community of Hollywood have ample time to review the document and give us input, although I will tell you that we have had many meetings with the Hollywood community as we have completed the plan. So that's basically what's been going on in planning for the past couple of weeks.
That's quite a bit, and I thank you for your diligence and the hard work from the planning department. Mm-hmm. And we continue to push forward these policy measures that I believe will make the city that much more functional and hopefully raise our quality of life so that we can continue with that struggle and that balancing act.
Well, we feel that we have been extremely lucky to have the support of the Plum Committee. You have been diligent and been there with us at every step, and we appreciate it.
Thank you. Any questions from my colleague? Okay. On item number 6, I try to make it a point when we have police officers in the audience, if we can move those items in front so that we could have them out in the field as opposed to stuck inside City Hall. So do we have officers involved in the item number 6 issues? Are there any officers here? Because I would hate to keep you all for these hours, seeing that we don't.
There are 2 speaker cards that were sent.
2 speaker cards, but they're not police officers. So I just want to make sure we dealt with police officers first, and they're not here, so we'll go down the schedule as numbered in our agenda. So that being said, I want to ask you to give us your name and address when you come to the microphone. Keep an eye on that clock. I believe we'll be changing that time frame for some of the items, knowing that there has been extensive hearings in most of these items in the past. When you do, please speak into the microphone. The acoustics in this room are not the greatest. So if you have a conversation, please take it outside. If there is something that has been stated and you agree with it and don't have anything else to add, it's fine to say, I agree with the previous speaker. If you'd like to add anything else, please do to inform this committee. Some of you might have written very eloquent letters, so keep that in mind when you're looking at that clock. I think we need to get to your bottom line, and sometimes folks run out of time. And you could submit that letter for the record as well. So with that, Roberto, let's start with item number 1.
Yes, council member. Item 1 is a motion of Riza Zain Labange. It's requesting the city attorney and the planning department to prepare an ordinance that would amend the medical marijuana dispensaries ICO to strike the hardship exemption clause from the ordinance.
Okay.
Before we start, community impact statement was just submitted on this item that has general comments, and that is in support of a legalized distribution of marijuana for medical purposes only, and it was submitted by the West Side Neighborhood Council.
Okay, I want to thank my colleague, Councilman Busar, for his initiative in advocating for the citizenry of our city. I know he's not here. He has had commitments that are city-related and therefore is not present. But we do have the speaker card of Ana Cubas, Chief of Staff. Would you like to come on up? You submitted your card for a statement, I believe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Ana Cubas, and I'm the Chief of Staff to Councilmember Jose Huizar. I will read into the record a statement from him. Dear colleagues, I would like to state for the record that I have supported and continue to support Proposition 215, which gives qualified medical patients the right to have reasonable access to medical marijuana. But the proliferation of dispensaries is a huge problem in many communities across Los Angeles, including the communities of Eagle Rock, El Sereno, and downtown Los Angeles, which I represent. My issue is with clinics which have opened in violation of the interim control ordinance. The problem is that there are individuals who are opening up multiple dispensaries all over the city of Los Angeles with the clear goal of making a quick profit. They are using the hardship exemption of the city's interim control ordinance as a perverse tool to open up these dispensaries. I have been advised by our city attorney that filing a hardship exemption does not permit a medical marijuana dispensary to open. I have been in conversations with my constituents to brainstorm on how we can deal with this issue. We are respectfully requesting that the committee take the following steps to deal with this problem, which is out of control. Number 1, adopt the motion that is before you. On April 28th of this year, I introduced this motion, which calls for the striking of the hardship exemption provision immediately. This would solve our problems with those additional fly-by-night dispensaries that are opening up. The city would be able to issue orders to comply and then prosecute those that fail to comply. My motion cuts this loophole and adds teeth to the interim control ordinance. I ask that it make its way to City Council with all haste and include an urgency clause. 2, deal with hardship exemptions. The fastest way to enforce against dispensaries is to hold hearings in this committee to deal with the hardship exemptions that have been filed. There are 478 citywide hardship cases. We need to determine once and for all whether these dispensaries serve a legitimate purpose or are part of the perverse exploitation of the hardship exemption. 3, write and enact a permanent ordinance. We need to write and adopt a permanent ordinance that provides clear parameters and regulations for legitimate dispensaries, such as ensuring that they are not located next to schools, parks, youth facilities, and places of worship, and that prevent the overconcentration of these facilities in any one community. We need to adopt the ordinance as soon as possible because the current ICO has created a situation that is difficult to manage. I am willing to roll up my sleeves and work diligently with you and my constituents to craft such an ordinance. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and I do know that Councilmember Zine had introduced the original ICO 2 years ago, and we have been trying our best to get to that policy that would allow us to move in the direction, and I feel we're very close to it. I appreciate Councilman Weezar's effort. There has been many efforts made, and a lot of work has been done, and we're very, very close. So again, we'll thank him for his work. And our next speaker, Barbara, we can put this to 1 minute because we have quite a few speakers on this. And I'd like to call up David Hernandez on item 1. Give us your name and address. And the first, I'm not sure how to read. I mean, I'm trying my best to decipher this, but I think it's D-E-G-E, Conti. Want to make sure we call that person up. And Frank Shiftel. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. David Hernandez, 5312 Bellingham, Apartment 3, Valley Village, 91607. It's good that we're here, and it's good that we address this issue. And it's important to keep in mind that medical marijuana is not what's on issue here. It's how do we, as a city, accept our responsibility to move forward to ensure that certain rights and responsibilities are met. First of all, the rights of the community to make sure that their community and quality of life is not impaired, but also the rights of small business people who we as a city encourage to do business in our city, to follow certain regulations and ordinances, to subscribe and meet with council members and law enforcement and work together so that they will be an integral part of our community. This ordinance is a step in the right direction. However, it is lacking in certain qualifications. If it eliminates hardships in the first part, then how in the second part do we review hardships that are no longer existing? So I think it needs to be specific about existing ones that are on the list.
Thank you. People is DJ Conti. I'm sorry for mispronouncing.
DJ Kuti.
DJ Kuti. Okay.
My handwriting is also a little difficult at times as well.
I apologize.
Good afternoon. I thank you for being here and tackling this very difficult issue. I agree with Councilmember Huizar's statement that yes, we absolutely do need to hear the hardships that we have and decipher that list with the city clerk so that we know who is operating legitimately and who is not. And yes, we do have a short amount of time in which to get good regulations in place here in Los Angeles. However, I think at this critical time, it's a bit of a misdirection to ask the city attorney to draft anything further than working on those permanent regulations. And the reason being, over 20% of the dispensaries that are operating outside of the ICO are doing so without filing a hardship. I think that purely giving the city clerk direction to not give out any more hardship applications is not going to deter opportunistic people from opening. They're already just talking about opening underground anyway.
Being Wisconsin, you should know we are working on the permanent ordinance as well. Frank Shiftel, and I believe we have Meredith Brown and Laura Gutierrez.
Frank Sheftel, 11436 at Harris, North Hollywood. I'm a candidate, by the way, for City Council for CD2, so I have an involvement that I'm very concerned about this issue in my community as well. There was an ICO. It was September 07. Accordingly, there should have been no licenses issued to anybody that went in after the cutoff date. So why is it that there's a magazine, this is last month's gem, 18 grand openings. These are people that have filed their licenses. Somebody didn't get the memo in the licensing department not to issue the licenses. Hussar's statement that filing a hardship exemption does not permit dispensaries to open illegally or legally at all. It doesn't. Hardship exemptions were for the dispensaries that are on the list, the 186, if they got a DEA letter and they needed to relocate. That was my understanding. I'm on that list. I own a dispensary. For 3 years, I went to great lengths to get on that list. And I'm frustrated that continuing licenses have been granted. Throwing out the hardships is not going to solve anything.
Right, you're right, and we need enforcement, so that's what we're working on. Thank you. Meredith Brown, Laura Gutierrez. Good afternoon.
Meredith Brown, Eagle Rock Neighborhood Council, 2478 Lloyd Lane. I'm also an attorney and an activist, a progressive activist to boot. And I agree with with Councilman Weisart's motion. Essentially, real quickly, hardship, we actually looked at some of the hardship language, and it looks like it's basically saying that federal law prohibits the sale of marijuana. There's enforcement issues, but we have a new administration, the Obama administration, that said that they're basically going to back off in terms of any sort of enforcement actions. We haven't seen much of anything in the city of Los Angeles recently. Also, just in terms of numbers, there were 180 dispensaries as of September 07. Now it has literally, pardon the pun, blossomed to over 680. And in Eagle Rock alone, we have 14 new, it's in the Council District 14, there are 14 dispensaries with others that are just plumbing along. So again, I respectfully agree with what you said, but it just seems like somebody's asleep at the wheel, and I think we really need to crack down on enforcement, and we have to move quickly because people are taking advantage of the situation.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Councilmember Reyes. My name is Laura Gutierrez, and I'm at 3022 Edward Avenue. I'm here as a private citizen, and I'm here to speak on behalf, in support that you strike the hardship exemption. It's obvious that we noted that there are loopholes here, and the reason I'm in support of this is because they're not following the rules, and they're not getting the proper permits that are required for the buildings that they're going. So that is one of the main reasons. I'm a registered nurse as well, and I practice traditional as well as alternative medicine. I am not against using or administering medical marijuana. I have worked on cancer wards and on AIDS floors, but the main thing is that this is land use issues, and they should follow the rules, and there should be more enforcement. I'm also kind of in support of Chief Bratton. Maybe something along having this dispensed in a legal pharmacy would help this. But in regards, I would ask that you support this and pass this on to City Council. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next group of speakers is Michael Larson. I believe it's Ali Rabi or Ali Rob. Okay. Reverend Patrick Duff. Yes, go ahead.
Good afternoon. It's Michael Larson from the Eagle Rock Neighborhood Council. I'm this Public Safety Director. We respectfully ask that you pass Mr. Weisart's motion today and that you allow the City Attorney to direct the motion directly to the full Council for a vote this Friday. We ask that you schedule special sessions of this committee to hear and deny all hardship applications for all dispensaries not on the city's original list. We appreciate in advance the hard work and the extra effort that it will cause the council members and their staff. We ask that this committee reach out to and work closely with informed and concerned community groups such as neighborhood councils in drafting the final ordinance so that communities' voices will be heard and reflected in the regulations. Finally, we would like assurances from this committee that no dispensaries will be grandfathered into the final ordinance, that all dispensaries will cease operation until they can be shown to be in full compliance with the tightly regulated, heavily enforced, and brilliantly conceived final ordinance that this committee is about to reveal. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Reverend Patrick Duff and Ali Roz and Terry Tippett.
Greetings. I'm here to speak on behalf of my church because it's a strange situation. In your ordinance, you're saying that these dispensaries can't be near a church, but I'm a Rastafarian, and if everybody knows Bob Marley's one of the most famous Rastafarians in the world, and that's his first cousin over there who's our spiritual elder. Now, at our church, which I'd invite the council, the planning commission, and any neighborhood council in to see the way we operate in our church, I'll invite anybody in open arms and lovingly to see what we do and the way we take care of people. I believe in your ordinance somewhere it should be drafted that there is churches in your city currently operating as medical marijuana facilities. On December 2nd, I was raided by the DEA, and with help of the LAPD, and the city council was supposed to come back with some type of, they were going to do an investigation as to why the city helped with the raid into my church. Now, just to let you know, from the DEA letter to everything else that's happened at that one church, there is still hardships, and I still have to move my church, and we're moving the church right now to another location. So there is, after the Obama administration, 3 raids and still hardships happening.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, sir.
Our next speaker, after Terry Tippett, Noel, when? Sir, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Greetings in the name of the Most High, Jah Rastafari, Jehovah Sila, Rabboni. I, great God. I honored to be here with city representative, and I love LA. This is my home now, and I hope everyone here who has the power to do the right thing. Jah bless everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Terry Tippett, Westside Neighborhood Council, P.O. Box 64370, LA 9064. You received our letter that we sent in this morning. We do support legalized distribution of marijuana for medical purposes only. However, what we are concerned with is the amount of locations that have now approached us illegally. It's astronomical. I have 491 hardship cases now being before you. The hardship applicants have created a hardship on the communities. We support the motion before you today, and we would like to work with you to get an ordinance in place as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Noel Hugh, representing our Council President, Eric Garcetti. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Councilmember Reyes. Noel Hyun, Planning Deputy for Council President Garcetti. I just wanted to come and speak a little bit about this issue. I mean, the City of LA has had a moratorium on medical marijuana dispensaries for 2 years. And in the meantime, we've received approximately 500 requests for hardship exemptions on top of the dispensaries that properly registered with the city clerk. These 500 dispensaries continue to operate despite the moratorium. What good is the moratorium if we can't effectively enforce it? In Council District 13, we have 5 dispensaries in a 3-block radius of Atwater Village on Glendale Boulevard. And just a few weeks ago, shots were fired and people were killed in our community. Council President Garcetti has been working to transform Atwater Village and his other neighborhoods into safe, livable communities, and events like this threaten the work that all of us at City Hall do. We cannot allow these dispensaries to continue proliferating in our neighborhoods, and we must continue the hard work of implementing a permanent policy that does not allow these rogue dispensaries to continue destroying our neighborhoods. I ask that the Plum Committee prioritize this issue, and I also ask that city departments work collaboratively to help the City Council address the 500 and growing hardship exemptions, as well as to adopt a policy that protects neighborhoods, complies with state law, and also makes sense. I want to thank Councilmember Reyes, Councilmember Wisar, and Councilmember Zine for their staff for their leadership on this issue, and I'm looking forward to continuing our work together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next set of speakers, Michael Bailey, Tracy Chavira, and Jonathan Gerald. And that'll close the public hearing.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Michael Bailey, Tax and Business Division. I'm a consultant. We help set up medical marijuana dispensaries. The problem with the hardship applications here is that dispensaries set up, they consider themselves to be in compliance with the law, and sometimes it's a matter of opinion. But the issue here is that a lot of the community has a problem with medical marijuana because different people are hanging out in front of locations where dispensaries are. I would propose the council consider, in formulating its final ordinance, to consider perhaps the law argues in favor of a nonprofit business model for these dispensaries. And thereby, they are membership organizations. And these dispensaries can revoke a membership of people that are bad actors in the community who are using the dispensary and going out into the community, smoking marijuana on the sidewalk and these types of things. So perhaps the final ordinance might address that issue.
Thank you. And if you have anything in writing that we could see, be more than happy to entertain that. Ms. Chavira and Jonathan Gerald.
Good afternoon, Tracy Shavira, Central City Association, 626 Wilshire Boulevard. CCA supports the proposed amendment to strike out the hardship exemption from the interim control ordinance. We understand that marijuana dispensaries that did not register with the city in a timely manner are using the hardship exemption to avoid penalty. This is a gross exploitation of the intent of the ICO and should be corrected immediately. We believe that the amendment will put a stop to any new fraudulent hardship claims and clarify the intent of the ICO. We commend the city for the work it has done on a permanent ordinance to regulate marijuana dispensaries in the city of Los Angeles, and we offer any help that we may provide to create a workable policy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our last speaker, Jonathan Gerald.
Thank you. Jonathan Gerald, 305 South Hewitt in the Arts District in downtown Los Angeles. I have nothing against marijuana dispensaries, but I learned this morning that the city clerk's office has on
Speaking
file...
in the microphone, we can hear you better.
I learned this morning that the city clerk's office has on file a document indicating that my business address is listed as a medical marijuana dispensary. That document was filed 2 days before we took possession of that space at 305 South Hewitt. We're not a medical marijuana dispensary. I'm concerned that we are listed as such in public documents. And I just came here today to go on record to say that Bedlam LLC is a business that operates in the Arts District, works with local nonprofits, and we don't wish to be associated with a medical marijuana dispensary. And I think it's important for us to go on record since we just learned that this morning.
And what district are you in, do you know? What council district?
Council District 9, and I have contacted Greg Fisher in their office, and we are submitting a letter identifying who we are and what we do and how this came about.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time. Any comments or questions or observations, Councilmember, on this item? Item number 1. The motion is to adopt and forward to City Council.
I've been requested by Councilmember Weezer to make a couple motions verbally, so I'll do that right now for your, for discussion. One is to direct the committee, ask the committee to adopt the motion, ask the city attorney to draft the ordinance. That's the substance of the motion itself. Secondly, I've been asked by Mr. Weezer to request that an urgency clause be added in the drafting, and that there also be a penalty added in the event someone violates the ICO.
Okay, we can move that along with the amendments. So that... Okay. So Barbara, we can move this to City Council
Yes, it can go to
directly?
council. We'll approve it, the motion as requested with the amendments, and it can be scheduled in council.
Okay.
But not Friday necessarily, unless you ask for a date, that would be next week, or a special meeting for Friday.
As soon as we can.
Okay.
Okay. So that'll be our action of this committee. All right, so we have moved item number 2. Item number 3, Roberto?
Yes, Councilman, it's an appeal by the South Christie Neighborhood Association. It relates to an action of the Planning Commission as relates to a tract map for the merger and re-subdivision of 6 lots into one ground lot with 150 airspace lots, and this is for the construction of 149 assisted living units in CD5.
Okay. Chair from the staff, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Maya Zaitsevsky. I was the Deputy Advisory Agency for this tract, and I approved it on January 29th, 2009, and certified the Environmental Impact Report. Both the tract and the related DIR case for site plan review and density bonus were appealed to the City Planning Commission. The appeal The appeal points were nearly identical as this current appeal. The appellant feels the project is too large and is incompatible with the two-story duplexes in the adjacent South Carthay HPOZ. He also feels it will result in an increase in cut-through traffic in their neighborhood, is bad planning, and will have a negative aesthetic impact on the area. At the City Planning Commission appeal hearing, the applicant raised the number of very low-income units from 8 units to 12 units. The City Planning Commission found that the Deputy Advisory Agency did not err or abuse in the judgment, and the appeals were denied. Planning recommends that this decision is upheld, but we do need to make one change. After that City Planning Commission hearing, there was a new density bonus case that was filed, and it will be heard by the City Planning Commission on June 11th, 2009, and we just need to modify condition number 16 to add that the tract map decision is contingent upon both the site plan review that's been approved and this new density bonus case, which is CPC 2009-1329-DB. And I'm here for any questions you have.
Okay, well, thank you for the report. Let's jump right into the hearing. We have with us the appellant, I believe, is Steen Friedland, representing the South Carthay Neighborhood Association. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. Yes. Since I'm going to be the only person speaking for the appeal against the proposal, and you've got a busload of people that are going to be speaking against it, I request just a little more time, please.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We do afford the appellant a little bit more time.
My name is Stephen Friedland, 1130.
Would you do your best to speak into the microphone?
Stephen Friedland, 1130 South Orlando Avenue. I'm here for South Carthay Neighborhood Association. And for the record, an email request was made asking that this hearing be postponed until the scheduled June 11th Planning Department Density Bonus hearing is completed on this project. Also, there is a court order regarding density bonus projects that applies very specifically to this case. Obviously, you haven't postponed it. I'll move right ahead. There is no dispute that there will be negative impact from this project on the immediately adjacent South Carthay Historical Preservation Overlay Zone. And Councilman Reyes, this project needs your input. I heard you speak this Saturday at the HPOZ conference, and you spoke very convincingly about the need to protect HPOZs. We have argued that a 5-story, 150,000 square foot building with 300-foot frontage looming over the neighborhood will have significant impact. It will diminish the cultural and historical qualities that the city obligated itself to protect when it established South Carthay as the second Los Angeles HPOZ in 1983. In this emotionally charged bargain for affordable senior housing, what has the city gained in granting generous incentives to the developer and abandoning protection for South Carthay? A statement of the Planning Commission determination says, quote, the 26% density bonus grants the applicant an additional 31 units in excess of 118 otherwise permitted. These units will be restricted as affordable for sale or rental dwellings, unquote. But the requirement that the 31 incentive units be restricted does not carry through to the Planning Commission determination. Of the approved 149 units, 131 are luxury high-income units, and only 18 are low-income units. In addition, 36 affordable housing units will be demolished to build this project. Even more curious, the 22 skilled care units and 4 Alzheimer units are not part of the project count. The separate building on the site to house that skilled facility is essentially a lot split. The land area used for the separate buildings should be deducted from the total for the base unit and density bonus calculations, or the 26 units should be part of the unit count. In summary, the developer gets a project of 175 units where 118 would normally be permitted, and he gets a 150,000 square foot building where only 75,000 square feet would otherwise be allowed. The city gets 18 low-income units and the loss of 36 affordable units, and South Carthay gets the shaft. Likely, the issues of allowable density bonus, low-income allocation, and the phantom 26 units will be decided by lawyers and courts, as with the EIR. As you know, the density bonus ordinance is already the subject of court order. The project as planned is too big for the site, out of proportion with other commercial properties, and will loom over historic South Carthay, destroying its sense of time and place, diminishing its cultural and historic significance. The planning process and the political process have failed us so far. We continue to hope that a body such as this will arrive at a project that is a good deal for the city, profitable for the developer, and fair to South Carthay. Then the project could move forward without long-term litigation. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Britton. Other speakers that I'd like to call up? Now, is there anyone else that is with the appellant? And I want to make sure we keep that group intact. Okay. Our next set of speakers, we have Craig Webb, Michael Kahn, and Salvador Lamas.
Before we start,
I'm Lisa Speck.
how long did you want them to be able to speak?
I'm sorry?
The speakers, how much time? For the remainder of the speakers, okay.
2 minutes, yeah. You're the applicant?
Yes.
And your name is?
Representing the applicant, Lisa Specht, Manette Phelps and Phillips, representing the applicant and the applicant's proposed senior assisted living project. We're here before you today to ask you to uphold the Planning Commission's approval of a vested tenanted tract map and to reject this appeal. We've had a unanimous Planning Commission vote, strong support from the Mayor's office and the Council office, Council District 5, and broad-based community support. This project has been praised for its architecture, for its quality landscaping, for its sensitivity to urban planning principles. It addresses the city's dire need for senior housing and affordable housing. Our client could have proposed only an 8% low-income units in order to achieve the density bonus that it is getting here, which is a 26% density bonus. Instead, the client voluntarily dedicated 15%, twice the number of required units, so that we will have 18 affordable units in this project. This project is not in the HPOZ, which was referenced by the appellant. It is on La Cienega, and it is an excellent location. In fact, it's the epitome of smart growth, because to locate senior assisted living near various places of worship, near public transit, near a park, and near medical clinics and a hospital is, as I say, the epitome of smart growth. Now, I know your time is limited today, and so I'd like to tell you just briefly what is before you and what is not before you today. The site plan review, the density bonus, the development incentive, those things are not before you today. Those things have been decided. Those decisions were final at the Planning Commission level. Questions of bulk, height, architecture are not appealable to the council. The only thing before you today is the tract map, which means that, assuming this applicant develops the property as approved, the only question is whether he can subdivide these units and sell them. Now, he has no intention of selling these units because he wants an assisted living facility which will be rental. But in this economy, the folks who finance construction loans require that kind of flexibility. That's the only reason we're here today before you on this map. The concerns today the appellants have raised have absolutely nothing to do with a condo map. That's why you have to reject their appeal. I did hear some mention of the SB 1818 issue. While SB 1818, very specific parts of it were struck down by a court, most sections were not affected. And in this case, the planning department and the city attorney agree that our approvals, the approvals granted by the Planning Commission, were unaffected by that decision. Nevertheless, because there is sure to be litigation on this, in an abundance of caution, we are going back to the Planning Commission on June 11th to ask for reapproval of the project, the site plan review, and the density bonus. And if the appellant has concerns about bulk, height, and these other issues, that would be the time to raise it. We don't have to go back to the Planning Commission for map approval. Map approval is final. The only reason we're here today is because of this appeal. In closing, the only question before you today is whether this applicant has the right to subdivide the project into condominiums when the Planning Commission
reapproves this project. It's a very special project. It involves very important community benefits, and this city has a dire need for senior housing. So we ask you to uphold the Planning Commission's unanimous vote.
Thank you. Our next group of speakers, we have Craig Webb, Michael Kahn, and Salvador Lamas. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Craig Webb, 129 North Windsor Boulevard, Los Angeles. I've been following this important project for a long time now because I'm actually acutely aware of the potential benefits of this project and how this could have helped my mother and other seniors like her who desperately need decent housing and proper care. And all of these neighbors are doing is keeping proper care from the seniors who need it the most. The proposed facility has been held up since 2006, and that could have been 3 additional years of an improved quality of life for my mother and others in need like her. My mother and I waited 5 long years for affordable, proper housing to become available for her. The past 2.5 years, she was fortunate enough to be in an affordable senior living location that surely prolonged her life and definitely the quality of her life. Sadly, my mother passed away this last month on May 11th. Mr. Friedland, I think there's a reason you're the only person in here representing against this. You have no idea of the importance and impact of this project and how it can help seniors at their time, of their most important time in their life when they need the help the most, and have no means whatsoever to afford proper care and housing. This is coming from someone who's been directly affected by these situations. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Michael Kahn, Salvador Lamas, and Harry Babchin.
Mr. Chair, my name is Michael Kahn. I live at 1217 Elvira Street in Los Angeles, in the community of South Carthay. I also sit on the board of the HPOZ and have watched with interest the progress of this development. Assisted living is a big plus for this community, as it is for any community. Throughout history, developed societies have always looked after the aged. We need to do more and approve more of these developments. This development works very well for our community and aesthetically, in my opinion, fits in well with our community's general construction and building and looks. Recently, I asked my other members of HPOZ of South Carthay to meet with the owner, Dean Isaacson. They refused. Hence, I am here to vocally and enthusiastically support this project, which has been too long in the making. So let's move forward and approve this project. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Salvador Lamas. Harry Babchin, and then we'll have Dean Isaacson.
Good afternoon, all members. My name is Salvador Lamas. I live in 1042 South La Cienega. And
good afternoon, sir.
Project. So, I know I had to move for that building because I approve this project. We support because we need those kinds of places because day a day we see more senior citizens and they need those places. So, I hope approve this project. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Harry Babchin, Harry Babchin, Dean Isaacson, and Terry McCracken.
Harry Babchin.
Good afternoon, sir.
Harry, if you like.
Harry's fine.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, as a member of the South Carthay Neighborhood Association and former member of the board, I wish to state that I am in favor of this project. There is a huge shortage of assisted living places for senior citizens. Many of the senior citizens living in South Carthay and locally would naturally prefer to remain in and near their old neighborhood where their friends, family, and most of the health facilities are located. According to the artist's rendition, front and rear, and information given to us at our South Carthay meeting, this structure would be the most architecturally beautiful building from Sunset Boulevard all the way down past the old oil drilling areas on La Cienega. This project would provide 15 or more jobs for our unemployed in this troubling economic time and bring in at least several $100,000 to our needy city. In addition, since the location is near Olympic and Pico, there will be ample public transportation. There is an ample amount of underground parking for which nearly 100 extra parking spaces are available. What a great change to an area that was an eyesore. I hope you will consider the above request and do everything in your power to make this vision a reality. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Speck?
In the interest of time, I just wanted to let you know that Dean Isaacson, the applicant, will not be speaking unless you have questions for him. Bruce Labens, the architect, will not be speaking. And Terry McCracken, who is our environmental consultant, will not be speaking.
Okay, thank you. We cut through a lot of cards here. Now, these are with Mark Mandel.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
I'm Rabbi Mark Mandel. I live at 1474 Glenville Drive. In addition, I'm one of the rabbis at Beth Jacob Congregation, which is only a few blocks from the proposed project. Our seniors have been very patient. They've been waiting quite a few years to see this project come to fruition. They're literally watching their golden years vanish before their eyes. We have a responsibility. We must not turn our backs on them. We would want them to remain in our community and live with dignity. In addition, most of our seniors do not drive and will not create any traffic problems. This project is a win-win for our neighborhood. La Cienega has seen many years since it's seen a beautiful project such as this. And we hope that you'll support the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the time. That concludes public hearing, and the council member of the district where this project presides.
I was just coming up if you have any questions.
Do you have any questions, council member?
No.
It's all yours.
So I just want to point out a couple of other items that should be mentioned, which is, I think the applicant's attorney expressed very clearly what's before us and what is not before us. Nonetheless, just to have some of the history here, the original project here was redesigned. Height was reduced. The scale in the rear of the project was redesigned. The design, in fact, was approved earlier by an earlier iteration of the homeowner association. These homeowner associations go through different boards when people get sick of being on them or whatever. But an earlier board and an early HPOZ did approve those. A full EAR has been completed. It's at 15% affordable. Seniors in an existing RSO building are going to be permitted to live at the new center at the same rental rates that they pay now under their RSO, thanks to Ms. Trifaletti. And I don't need to tell you or anybody here about the need for senior housing. It's a good project. It is on a very crowded thoroughfare. I move that we approve the project and deny the appeal.
Right, and they support the effort and applaud the fact that these issues of compatibility were addressed, and the fact that you drove down to those details, because we are trying our best to preserve the neighborhoods and their historic nature, but we also are in constant balancing act with the entitlements of all these parcels that many have not been realized. And when they are realized, there seems to be a clash of character because of the fact that they have not been fully built out. So it's with delicate design, attention that's been demonstrated here in this project, we can achieve these levels of compatibility. So I congratulate you on that. Any other comments on?
Maya Zaitsevsky, Planning. I just want to clarify that it's a grant in part and deny in part, in that we need to change one of the conditions and have it reflect the newly filed density bonus case. So as I said earlier, condition number 16, we need to add that it's contingent upon the approval of CPC 2009-1329-DB.
Okay, so the proper terminology as it leaves this committee is to grant in part, deny in part, and add the amendments and conditions you have identified.
Modify condition number 6.
Modified
Yes.
conditions, okay.
Thank you.
So that'll be the action of this committee. You have 2 members that say yes, and it's a majority vote, so thank you very much. And that takes care of this item. Now we move on to our next item, Roberto.
That would be item 4, Councilman. It's 3 appeals relative to the Museum of Tolerance. One is by Scott Diamond on behalf of the Beverly Wood Homeowners Association. The other was by Susan Vance, and the third was by the applicant, the Samuel Rosenthal Center.
Thank you. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Councilmember Reyes, Councilmember Wise. My name is Jim Tokunaga. I am with the City Planning Department, and I was also the staff with the City Planning Commission for this case. This item is an appeal of the City Planning Commission's approval of a conditional use plan approval and other discretionary entitlements for the proposed approximately 21,000 square foot expansion of the Museum of Tolerance on Pico Boulevard in the West Los Angeles Community Plan area. The City Planning Commission also approved...
Can I just ask you before you continue?
Sure.
How many public hearings have been associated with this case?
We had one public hearing that lasted 4 hours with the hearing officer, myself, and the advisory agency, and we had a similar public hearing, maybe 2 hours, in front of the City Planning Commission.
So
there have been 2 hearings.
2 hearings, 6 hours, more or less?
Approximately 6 hours.
And by total number of participants, what has been that number?
We had roughly 100 people at the hearing officer's hearing, and almost... Well, the Planning Commission hearing was condensed to certain numbers of speakers from each side, so I would say there was at least 100 in the audience, but only about maybe a dozen people spoke.
But time was given to both perspectives?
Yes, there were.
Okay, thank you.
So, I'm continuing with my presentation. The City Planning Commission also approved a public benefit alternative compliance for the incorporation of approximately 7,100 square feet from the adjacent yeshiva school. The Planning Commission also approved some reduced and shared parking conditions for the expansion. As part of the approval, the City Planning Commission also modified conditions from the existing 1986 conditional use permit by allowing the expansion into 2 R1-1 zone properties that are currently being used as open space. These were conditions of the original conditional use permit. The height, as approved by the City Planning Commission, is limited to 63 feet 8 inches. The applicants are proposing a transitional height design that basically starts at around 29 feet 6 inches nearest the R1 zone, all the way up to the 63 feet, the existing height of the building, the existing height of the existing museum. Other conditions modified by the City Planning Commission to the 1986 approval include opening time of 7 a.m. for special guests and special training events, as well as extending the hours of operation till 6:30 p.m. The current closing time is limited to 5 p.m. As part of the conditional use approval, the Planning Commission also allowed third-party special events that are currently not allowed as part of the conditional use approval. The Commission did limit the event size to 500 people, ending at 10 o'clock p.m. Third-party events would be for special events such as not just for organizations, but parties, life cycle events such as bar mitzvahs and weddings. The City Planning Commission also certified the environmental impact report and adopted statements of overriding considerations. There are 3 impacts that cannot be mitigated to a level of insignificance. They have to do with aesthetics, noise, transportation, and traffic. 3 parties have filed appeals. 1 by the museum. They would like further modifications to the conditions of approval. And 2 appeals have been filed by aggrieved parties, basically on the entire decision of the City Planning Commission. And
okay.
that concludes.
Thank you. And before you leave, I wanted to, for the record, be very clear as to the nature of the impacts and what's being requested of us today versus what has been happening in the past. And my understanding is that there have been commitments made by the organization that's applying where it has been demonstrated at the public hearing that there were some regulations and some commitments made that seem to have been broken given the type of activity or level of activities that were realized when these commitments were made. Can you speak a little to that in terms of what was heard during these hearings and what was demonstrated?
Yes.
I want to make sure that is on the record.
There have been allegations made by some of the property owners in the area that the museum is not operating under the conditions of approval that have been previously granted in 1986. Complaints have been filed with the Building and Safety Department. However, as far as I know, there have been no notices and orders to comply. And because none of these, there have been no actual actions taken by the city against these against these allegations, they were not considered as part of our recommendation to the City Planning Commission, or neither did the City Planning Commission consider these allegations.
For the sake of clarity, there was no official city action, but there was demonstration that there was...
Yes, there was. The aggrieved parties have submitted certain types of documentations, pictures and letters saying that the museum is not operating under the conditions of approval, but again, they were just sort of hearsay between the allegations and the city plan and the Building and Safety Department, which has not taken an action.
Okay. Again, I just want to make sure that everything that I'm hearing through this process is put on the record for the sake of transparency. So that being said, let's call up the appellants of this case and learn of the nature of their appeal. Appeals have been filed by Scott Diamond on behalf of the Beverly Wood Homes Association. Was that withdrawn? Susan Gans and Daniel Fink. And can all the appellants come forward? Give us your name.
Yes, my name is Arthur Pugsley. I'm here from Chatton, Brown & Karstens, a law firm in Santa Monica, and I'm representing Homeowners Against Museum Expansion, of which Susan Gans is the president. She couldn't be here today.
Okay. Please.
I just wanted to say, to get a few things into the record, I do have a written letter that I'd like to submit. And I'll try to keep these short in the interest of time. Home is not opposed to a project on the site. Home is simply opposed to the project as it's currently proposed. Home would not oppose a modest, bona fide museum expansion and is actually perfectly willing to consider the originally recommended staff project that was first recommended at the staff level of the Planning Commission. Home does object to the CUP that was issued in March by the Planning Commission as insufficiently protective of the neighborhood. Nonetheless, it is better than what is now the appeal now made by the museum. The problem is simply that Home feels that zoning and general plan changes are inappropriate when the museum has the conditional use permit track available to it, which allows it to go forward with the project. The CUP is necessary because, one, it allows for greater possibility of enforcement of conditions, which has been an issue in the past, and it doesn't lock in the future land use, unlike a zoning and general plan change would. So with that background in mind, Home, again, objects to the project as it's currently proposed and incorporates all previous objections and comments. It also objects to the museum's appeal.
Please continue.
It also objects to the museum's appeal of the conditions of the CUP that limited the hours of operation and the number of people that could be present on the site at events at night. Home feels that those limitations in the CUP, although inadequate, are far better than the carte blanche that the museum is now essentially requesting to have much larger events through midnight. And given the museum's proximity to a very dense residential neighborhood, Home feels it's inappropriate to allow such large events in such proximity to a residential neighborhood. Unlike any other museum in the the city, this museum literally has no buffer between it and residential areas. In addition, as we said, and I'll just briefly run through these because you may not have heard them yet, there are a number of problems with the CEQA review of this project. The foremost among them is that Home believes the CEQA review has been improperly piecemealed, and there's a division between the Museum of Tolerance project and the ongoing review of the EULA project, which is physically adjacent to the Museum of Tolerance. The violations of the existing CUP have been mentioned, but they're relevant to the piecemealing issue because for the past several years, it would appear that the EULA has been renting space to the Museum of Tolerance in violation of conditions that are on the EULA CUP. What this also does is physically and conceptually unites the two project spaces. So we don't feel that it's appropriate to be separating out the Museum of Tolerance review from the EULA review. And in specifically, one of the conceptual problems with this is that traffic was identified in the Museum of Tolerance EIR as a significant impact. However, that's not the case in the EULA EIR. However, cumulatively, they clearly would be significant because you're adding a significant impact and another impact on top of that. So we feel that because the projects have been bifurcated sort of artificially in this way, that overall traffic impacts, including cumulative traffic impacts, have been underestimated, and therefore that there is less mitigation than there should be for traffic impacts. So in short, and again, there are several community members who will sort of touch upon that. We would recommend at this time that...
They're not going to repeat everything you said, though, right?
No.
Okay, all right.
That there not be approval of the museum's appeal at this point, and that the committee should remand it to the planning department to develop additional facts to make the EIRs compliant with CEQA in either combining them, as we think legally they should be, or at the very minimum, to have a thorough cumulative impacts analysis which addresses the traffic impacts of both projects. Also, for the reasons outlined above, given the fact that there is a CUP route that can be taken here, we oppose any attempts to change the underlying zoning or the general plan, since those will make enforcement of mitigation measures much more difficult and also lock in the land uses. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is that everyone? When it comes to the appellant, is that everybody? Okay. So we'll go to our next speaker, Mitch Menzer.
If I may, I think there were some other speakers with the home organization.
Yeah, but we're not part of the official group that filed the appeal.
Okay. If I may, my name is Mitch Menzer with the Paul Hastings Law Firm, 515 South Flower, representing the Museum of Tolerance. We have many speakers here, or many supporters of the museum who are here who would like to speak, but we've decided that we can limit our speakers to 5 for 1 minute if that's acceptable.
Yes.
But I would like to ask the supporters of the museum to stand and show their support.
Well, thank you for making the trip to City Hall. I know it's not the easiest place to find parking and getting here, but thank you for your time. Barbara, can you move that to 1 minute for the speaker? Yeah.
If I may, could I have 5 minutes to answer some of the issues raised and then highlight the issues in my appeal?
We'll give you your 2 minutes.
2 minutes for me?
Are you an appellant?
Yes. I'm representing the appellant.
Okay, go ahead.
So first of all, I'm going to focus my comments today on the issues that we've appealed from the Planning Commission approval. And as you know, the Planning Commission unanimously approved our proposed project. 2 issues that we're appealing are the Planning Commission limited the maximum number of attendees at events to 500 people. We'd like to increase that. And secondly, the Planning Commission required that all of our events end at 10 p.m., and we'd like to extend that. Both of these restrictions, we believe, significantly and adversely affect our ability to have events that achieve their purpose. With respect to the size, there are many events that simply 500 isn't big enough. For example, the museum has hosted speeches by President Clinton, President Bush, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and other dignitaries, and events like that simply need to be able to accommodate more than 500 people. With respect to the hours, we've done a survey of every museum in Los Angeles, and almost every one of those museums allow events to midnight or later. And in order to, again, accommodate these events, we need to have later hours. And in the conditions that we've submitted to you is our proposed modifications to those, and I'd like to outline those for you, which is we'd like to have a limited number of large events, no more than 12 per year, of events from 500 to 800 people, and no more than 3 of those in any month. And with respect to hours, we'd like to have events extend to 11 p.m., except dinners. Those would be able to extend to midnight, again with the limitation that there would be no more than 10 events per month that went to midnight. And for any dinner, we would agree that the music would have to end at 11:30. We've also submitted a traffic and parking management plan as a condition, and these are in the revised conditions we've submitted, that has a detailed set of elements that will be submitted to LADOT, which are intended to address the question of overflow parking in the residential neighborhood, as well as cut-through residential parking. And I'd like to explain how we arrived at those proposals. Since the Planning Commission, we've been engaged in extensive discussions with the Beverlywood Homes Association, and Beverlywood is a 1,300 homeowners association, which is immediately to the south of the museum. They had identical concerns that we've heard in terms of parking, cut-through residential traffic, noise, and we've been working with them extensively to arrive at this proposal which we're making today to limit the number of large events and permit a limited extension of those hours. And I'm pleased to say that Beverlywood Homes Association has accepted this proposal, and they're no longer opposing our project. And in fact, I believe there was a letter sent that indicated that they are no longer opposing the project, and they've agreed that their appeal can be denied. And I think that's why there's no representative of Beverlywood here today. I'd also like to mention that we've been working extensively with the City of Beverly Hills, which at the Planning Commission identified similar issues, cut-through traffic, parking, as well as a couple of other issues. And we've been working diligently to address their issues. We've submitted a traffic analysis, for example, that shows that the museum will not have a significant impact in terms of intrusion on residential streets. We've worked on other issues with them, and the parking and traffic management plan that we've submitted that appears as condition number 24 has been worked out with we've been negotiating that with the City of Beverly Hills, and that condition has also been negotiated extensively with the Beverlywood Homes Association. So I'm pleased that we're making progress there. I understand that the City of Beverly Hills will be asking that this committee continue this matter so that staff has an opportunity to brief 1 or 2 Beverly Hills City Council members who've not had a chance to be briefed on this. I'd like to express our position that we don't see any, with all due respect to Beverly Hills, we don't see any reason why this matter should be continued. We're giving you our commitment. We'll continue to work with Beverly Hills on their issues. I don't see any benefit that will be gained by postponing this. And in addition, it should be noted that Beverly Hills is not an appellant in this matter. They've approached us with these issues through this process. I'd like to talk briefly about the parking and the traffic management plan, because we understand from Beverlywood, we understand from the immediate neighbors, the home group, and from Beverly Hills, that the possibility that there would be overflow parking from an event on residential streets is of paramount importance. The traffic and parking management plan identifies a number of elements to solve that problem, and in addition, there's a significant surplus of available parking lots and parking spaces along Pico Boulevard, including an office building that's a few hundred feet away from the museum that has over 600 parking spaces that would be exceptionally well suited for overflow parking or event parking on a valet or otherwise basis. So we're confident that we can solve the parking issue with the parking management plan and with these available additional off-site parking areas.
I'd like to ask you a question regarding that matter. In terms of the queuing up, my understanding is that, and I'm posing it as a question, in your master plan in dealing with traffic impacts, is that issue going to be addressed as people are trying to get into the parking facility in the existing structure, as people are waiting to get in? How is that matter going to be addressed, or if it is going to be addressed, given that the queuing up, you have cars spilling out into the street, forming a line, causing more congestion? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, that is the purpose of the parking management plan, to have a system and to have the resources available to make sure that doesn't happen. So a number of different strategies will be employed, starting with communicating to the attendees the best way to approach the museum, pointing out that there are these additional sites, whether it's the off-site parking across the street that's controlled by the Simon Wiesenthal Center, pointing out that there may be another off-site location or an off-site shuttle, instructing them how to approach the museum so a queue doesn't form, having valet parking if that's necessary, either on the street in front of the museum or in the museum parking lot. So there are numerous strategies that are available and that will be employed, beginning with communication, but then also managing it on the site. The traffic study in the EIR, of course, analyzed the possibility of this queuing and concluded that it wouldn't be a problem. But the purpose of this management plan is to make sure that in practice the resources are there, and also that DOT has an opportunity to assess how this is working, and that's part of the plan as well.
And Mr. Menzer, only because you heard my questions of the staff before the public hearing process, I'd like to pose that question to you in terms of enforcement or keeping in line with these commitments, given what evidence was demonstrated through the public hearing where certain functions and or activities occurred. What sticks out of my mind, staff showed me the notion of a restaurant when there should have been a kitchen. It actually blossomed into a restaurant entrepreneurial activity, it seemed like, within that facility. So I want to just put that out there because I think it deserves a response. And these are, and given the light of impact that's happening here, I think it merits some attention. So if you can just respond to that.
I'd be happy to. The museum has taken very seriously the allegations that have been made, and it's absolutely correct. There, as this application progressed, there have been a series of allegations, but they're nothing more than allegations. They have been submitted to Building and Safety, and as I understand it, Building and Safety has not acted on any of these, presumably because it didn't find a basis in fact. Now, through this process, we've responded to each and every one of the allegations, including the allegation that the West Wing has been used in violation of the CUP, which is not correct, because the West Wing, it is permitted to be used by the museum under certain limited circumstances, and that's permitted and called out in the CUP. The use of and I'm not sure what you're referring to in terms of a restaurant, but there is a small, can't even call it a cafe, a snack bar, that has been available and used by museum visitors at all times in compliance with the CUP, and that's something that has been, in existence, has been openly used that way since the beginning. So we want to be very clear that while we take these seriously, we want to be clear that we're refuting the allegations.
Thank you, Mr. Menzer. Again, it's for the sake of transparency I ask these questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So, as we move forward, we have other speakers, and I'd like to keep them to 1 minute. And we have Madi Aluzum, I believe. Luzmi. I apologize for mispronouncing your name. Sylvia E. Krasnick and Gerald Krasnick. And you're welcome to form a line so we can keep this moving. But good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, honorable members of the council and staff. I appreciate the opportunity to address you this afternoon on the proposed Museum of Tolerance expansion project. As Mr. Menzer suggested, the city staff raised 4 issues that we had concerns about to the Planning Commission in a March 23rd meeting that we submitted, and they have been very cooperative and extremely helpful in working through those issues with us. And out of the 4 issues that we raised, we believe that 3 have been thoroughly addressed, and those are included, in fact, in the conditions of approval that you have in your packet. I believe it's conditions number 19 and 24. And should the committee decide to proceed with recommending to the full council the consideration and approval of the project, we hope that you ensure that those conditions are incorporated into the approval process. But we still have to review and verify the traffic analysis that were submitted, the 4th item that we asked the applicant to address, and those are the traffic impacts on the, I apologize, on the segment of Roxbury. And we received the traffic report yesterday, so we wish to have some time to address that. Thank you.
Thank you. And just keep your eye on the clock so that way you can pace yourself as you speak. There's a 1-minute clock right on the table. Can you see it? Right there?
Yes.
So that way you'll be pacing yourself with your comments.
My name is Sylvia Krasnick. I live on Roxbury Drive. In response to Mr. Menzer, other museums in the area of the city of Los Angeles have sufficient parking for 1,000 people, whereas this museum does not. They have approximately 300 spaces on site. The parking in the surrounding areas that he mentioned, all those things that he mentioned were in the CUP in 1986, and they have never materialized. I was president of the organization at that time. I personally wrote to the Planning Commission, the Zoning Commission, every office I could think of to write. No one ever responded. They are not allowed to have a cafeteria. It's in the CUP of 1986. I would, at this time, like to ask this committee to postpone and delay the actions for museum expansion until we know what UL is planning, because it is one thing. I would just like to ask the people in support who live in the immediate area between Roxbury and Beverville, Pico and Cascio to stand. We are directly impacted. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Gerald Krasnick, and then we'll have, I'm sorry, yes.
My name is Gerald Krasnick. I live on Roxbury Drive and have lived there for 57 years. We urge that consideration of the Museum of Tolerance expansion be delayed until a new 5th District Council member is seated. The individual will have to deal with perhaps 12 years of problems from the proposed expansion. The proposed expansion is not a true museum expansion, but rather the construction of a commercial banquet facility with prolonged hours of operation on land currently zoned for 3 single-family homes. The museum also wants to have 800 occupants in this catering hall with only 202 on-site parking spaces. The proposal violates both the general plan and the community plan and requires major variances from the zoning code. Because of this, the senior city planning, well...
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Eric Stevens, Zelda Hollander, and Mary Goodman. It's Eric Stevens. Go ahead, Ms. Zelda.
Hi, my name is Zelda Hollander, and I live at 9752 Alcott Street. I've lived there for 45 years, and I've seen the museum go from a little stamp to just taking everything over. I would like to ask the people who stood up for the proposal, where do they live? For 45 years, I go around collecting for charities, there isn't one face that I recognize here that lives in my area. They hire buses to bring them here. We don't have the money to hire buses to pick up people to bring them here to support us. As far as having 800 people there, when President Clinton and all these people come, they come in my house. They go in my house through the windows. With the windows watching, they go up on my roof. And this is what I live with. And I'm against this. And it's not fair what they're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Forgive my anger.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good afternoon. My name is Mary Goodman. I live on South Roxbury Drive. Everything that has been said, I oppose this expansion, but you did mention things that happened that weren't supposed to happen. The very beginning, when the museum was built, there was a height limit on Roxbury Drive. The museum decided they didn't care what the city said, and they built above that height limit. It took Zev Yaroslavsky coming down to our street, seeing what had happened, and demanding that it be torn down. That was just the first in our face that they will do as they please. Thank you.
Thank you. Alex Stevens and Jimmy Queston.
Do I need to clarify that I'm speaking in favor of the expansion? Because the people that just went before me are opposed to the expansion.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay. It should be documented, the number of school districts and schools that I have represented and the hundreds of kids that I've taken to the museum. And one argument was that the museum could bring their program to the schools. That does not serve the need of the inner city kids that I work with. They go to the museum and they have a hands-on, hear it, see it, do it experience. And that's the experience that these kids need. When you see them there, they learn the things that they should do, and they learn the things that they should not do. And they also learn the consequences of doing those things that are negative and the things that are positive, and to see those kids when they experience that going to the museum. I have a visit scheduled for June and some coming up in July, but that needs to be emphasized.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for that comment. We have Eric Maman, I believe, and Holly Prundias, and Isabel Novak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Eric Mamon. I live along with my wife and 3 young children on the very same block as the Museum of Tolerance. We support the mission of the museum and feel it's a significant public resource, but we strongly oppose the proposed expansion for a number of reasons which are in the materials and which I won't repeat. Suffice it to say, the neighborhood's voice has not been heard in this decision-making process. But I want to just make a procedural point that was touched on earlier. We just had an election, and at the end of this month, we'll have a new council member in District 5 who will have to deal with all the problems the proposed expansion will cause for years to come. I personally have discussed this matter with incoming council member Paul Koretz throughout the campaign, and just recently, in fact, on Friday, he made it clear to me that he sees the neighborhood as more of a partner in decisions such as these. And he's not formally taken a position on the issue, but he acknowledged to me that the proposed expansion could have adverse impacts on the neighborhood, and he would certainly like to prevent those. He also stated he feels that a mediated compromise would be preferable to years of litigation. So I mentioned that. I think it's important. For that reason, for reasons articulated by Mr. Pugsley earlier related to the yeshiva's simultaneous expansion, I request that the committee either reject the City Planning Commission approval or as an alternative defer on the decision. Thank you.
Holly Diaz, Isabel Novak, Matthew, I believe it's Bo. I apologize. Go ahead.
Hi.
Good afternoon. My name is Holly Preby-Diaz. I'm the intervention expert for the Los Angeles Unified School District, Office of Human Relations, Diversity, and Equity. LA Unified School District is the second largest school district in the nation, representing over 200 different cultures. We bring students throughout the city, district, and county to the Museum of Tolerance to teach them important lessons every single day on issues about bias-related behaviors, including racism, discrimination, prejudice, and other forms of violence. And the Museum of Tolerance has been a very important and critical partner of ours. This task is monumental and it cannot be done alone. We ask that not only do you support the expansion, but that the community as well can continue to embrace the museum, because it not only is for one specific group, but it is for the entire community. And also, part of my job is to coordinate the crisis intervention and response for the entire city as it relates to the school district. And again, we can't do this work alone. So thank you very much for your support.
I just wanted to understand, how many young people do you work with?
720,000 students.
And you're one person?
There's one other person in our office, and it's quickly shrinking. So just so everyone know, school district has less and less resources right now. So we can use all the help we can get.
What's the number of young people going through this facility?
Right now, we've just taken annually probably about 250,000 or more, at least through our office that we filter. And we wish that we could do more, but it takes a lot of resources. So they're a critical partner of ours.
In terms of the visit to the museum, annually, is there a ballpark figure you can share with us?
Annually, taking the kids to the museum,
yes.
It's close to about 250 to 300,000 students that we take, including, and that's not counting parents and staff members and so forth. And I'm probably off a little bit, but at least from the office that we coordinate our services through, the Human Relations Office.
There's only two of you.
Yeah.
Wow, congratulations.
Thanks.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Man, okay. We have Isabel Novak, Matthew, and I'm having a hard time with the last name. It's B-O-G, I think it's U or T, but I don't want to butcher it. And then we have Rolf Gompers. Ma'am, good afternoon.
Hi. My name is Isabel Novak. I live at 9707 Saturn Street, which is south of Pico and less than 500 feet from the Museum of Tolerance. I support the expansion 100%. I have lived in the neighborhood with my husband and my son, well, my son isn't that old, but for 27 years, and have witnessed the museum's operation all this time. So please don't pay attention to those that say the museum is not a good neighbor. It is a great neighbor, and I'm one of the neighbors, and I don't know some of these people that are here for the opposition, so maybe we're even. The museum has been having events all this time, and they are managed with great regard for the neighborhood. The small incremental increases that they're asking for in terms of number and size of events are absolutely reasonable. The same people who are opposing the expansion today have opposed the museum since day one, saying it will ruin the neighborhood. In fact, in most of the time, you don't even feel the museum. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Matthew Boger.
Okay, I apologize. All right.
1708 Nichols Canyon Road, Hollywood, California. I am the manager of operations for the Museum of Tolerance. Manager of operations for the Museum of Tolerance. At the age of 14, I know what it's like to be on the other side. I was a victim of a terrible hate crime perpetrated against me by 14 skinheads in West Hollywood, in which I was left for dead in an alley. I came face to face with that perpetrator at the Museum of Tolerance, where we have developed a very powerful program which we outreach to those 200,000 students that she just spoke about. We have all asked ourselves this question: how do we prevent another Columbine-style incident? How do we ensure that another student shows up for school and not shot in the head for being gay, as in the Lawrence King case in Oxnard? And how do we ensure to a mother that she does not return home on her son's 12th birthday with a cake, a card, and a gift, only to find him hanging from the rafters because he was tired of being bullied at school for being African?
You're going really fast. That's
I know, because I only have a minute.
You boy. All right. You got to get one or two things that are very clear.
All right. Well, I was going fast because of the time.
Okay, I'll give you another 20. Let's give you 30 seconds. Go ahead.
So how do we prevent these things? The museum has the programs, the tools, and the answer. All I am asking for is the space to carry that message out to those youth who may be our leaders tomorrow and never have to turn away another person. I am on the front lines of having to turn those kids away, telling them that they cannot come to visit the museum because we do not have the space for them. I don't want to have to do that anymore. I want every child to have the opportunity to make a difference in their school, their community, and hopefully in society later on. That's all I ask for. Thank you.
All right, that was amazing. All right. We have a couple more. Do you want
I just want to thank that last speaker for his statement, because there's literally nothing left for me to say when I make my motion. Thank you very much for what you said, and thank you for what you do.
Okay.
My name is Ralph Gompers. I live at 6516 Ben Avenue in North Hollywood. My parents of blessed memory and I lived through Kristallnacht, the night of broken glass, November 9th, 1938. It was the event that launched the Holocaust. As a survivor, I've been a witness, bearing witness at the Simon Wiesenthal Center, Museum of Tolerance, for the last 3 years. I would like to address the expansion issue. It's been said that to have weddings, bar mitzvahs, and other events would dishonor the 6 million and the survivors and their families. I would say that it would honor them. What is the first thing that those who survived did on being liberated? They married again. They raised families again. They had children and bar mitzvahs again. They participated again in the life of their communities. They celebrated again. The expansion would let the center become more fully a place of memory, tolerance, and life.
Thank you, Mr. Gompers. Thank you. Captain Ann Young? Our last speaker, Captain Ann Young? Not here. Okay. Okay, that closes public hearing. Councilmember of the district, like to make a few comments?
I was going to make 2 comments, but, I'm sorry, Ms. Zatevsky, is there anything that we need to... Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Zatevsky, it's not... Sir, I apologize. Is there anything else that needs to be placed in the record based on what you heard from the comment?
Just a point of clarification, there was a general plan amendment and zone change request in the original application. However, that was denied by the City Planning Commission, and that is not before the Plum Committee, and also the applicants have withdrawn that request. So there is no plan amendment zone change. It's the expansion is being done through the conditional use process.
Okay.
That's it. Thank you. I think the last 2 speakers just said it extraordinarily well, so I'm not going to bore anyone and give a speech full of platitudes that can't stand up to what the last 2 folks just said. Also, just let it be known and let it be clear on this record. Once again, this is a project that has been modified throughout its history. The building was redesigned substantially to respond to planning and community concerns. It was scaled back in height. It was scaled back in rear setbacks. Soundproof construction has been agreed to. The number of events have been scaled back. Parking management plan has been devised. Mr. Menzer spoke with that. The affected homeowner association, and change in CD5 history, has agreed. And that's why they've withdrawn their appeal, which involves restriction on events, transportation, parking issues, so on and so forth. So I have a recommendation for the committee, Ms. Greaves. I'll give it to you. Ms. Trifoletti has drafted it. Certify the EIR, adopt the final EIR, adopt the findings, adopt the mitigation monitoring and reporting program, approve the appeal filed by the Wiesenthal Center subject to the conditions, and resolve to deny the appeals filed by Beverlywood Homes, Gans, Fink, etc.
I do want to point out, Councilman, I believe there's a condition 31, which requires the applicant to file within a year a plan approval application to review compliance with conditions imposed and effectiveness of such conditions. So that, I believe, will also provide an extra layer of enforcement, if you will, and caution, and allow for greater compatibility as we learn from our experiences after 1 year. So that'll be something that will hopefully allow for a greater level of communication, understanding between all the parties. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, for the record, the Paul Hastings, the representative for the museum, also submitted revised findings and modifications of condition 19 and 24, as well as additional sequel findings that we'd like to know if the planning department has had an opportunity to review as part of the approval.
For the record, are you familiar with what?
I have seen the conditions and the modified findings. If the plum committee does choose to grant the appeal on the applicant, then we are willing to incorporate them into the new conditions of approval and findings.
Okay, so we will be granting in part and denying in part the appeal with all the conditions as stated by Councilmember and Councilmember Rice, and we can move forward on this item. So that will be the action of this committee. So that will close public hearing, and that concludes this item. Thank you very much for your cooperation and your patience.
Okay, hang on for a second.
Okay, we have.
I got you. Yes, sir. I will.
Okay.
They forgot me again, but it's in the record. Somebody else talked about it.
Yeah, one more. Mr. McQuiston, that was item number 3. It came to me afterwards. I don't know why. I apologize, Mr. Queston. I'm not trying to avoid you, believe me. I'm sorry, Mr. McQuiston. Okay. Item number 6, Roberto.
Yes, Councilman, this is an appeal by Miguel Vasquez and Edwin Monterosa. He's appealing the entire decision of the zoning administrator and imposing conditions with respect to the operation of a bar known as Los Amigos Bar in CD9.
Yes, sir. My name is Albert Landini. I'm here representing the Director of Planning today on this revocation action. The Planning Department, through the Director of Planning, acted to impose conditions on a use of property located at 7026 South Broadway, a finding that the project had created substantial amounts of nuisance activities in the area associated with the site and with the business practices therein. The two most egregious ones were the fact that the applicant admitted to an active B-girl business going on within the facility, and explained that they were unable to control such activity because B-girls are, as a business, take place everywhere, and that they should not be, in effect, penalized for having these kinds of operations. The second one was that...
Can you repeat the first one, please, sir?
That they had a B-girl operation in the bar, and that the B-girl operation was acknowledged as being there by the applicant. He said he knew he had this B-girl problem, but that the B-girls were not his, that there were two types of B-girls. We had a lengthy discussion. I learned more about the B-girl operation than I ever wanted to know.
Are you saying, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
I'm sorry, excuse me.
Can you repeat the first one more time?
Okay, there was a B-girl, bar girl. These are women that solicit drinks for profit from male customers within a bar.
I see.
This is a use not permitted within the city. And that the operator knew that he had this kind of operation going on. He admitted it at the public hearing. But he also stated that he was unable to control this kind of operation. And then through dialogue with he and with police department representatives, I learned how B-girl operations work, that there are effectively two types of B-girl operations.
You're saying B-girl?
B like in bar. Like,
okay.
And it's a big B dash girl. It's a...
Okay, I've never heard that before.
Really, sir?
Okay. B-girl, okay.
B-girl. So these are, it's a short for bar girls or women who solicit drinks. In the past, back when I was a kid, On Main Street, there were a lot of bars that would have women there, and you would walk in and to buy a beer, and you buy.
So this is B for bar girl.
B for bar girls, and you would buy her a drink of champagne, and it would really be just ginger ale, and you would pay a trumped-up price for it.
Do they charge for dancing too?
They charged for dancing as well at this place. That was statements made by people in the audience. They said that you could get a dance for $10 with one of the B girls.
Okay.
And the way the operation works is that sometimes the cashiers are in on the deal, the bartenders may be in on the deal, or taxi cab drivers may be in on the deal. And there are two types of B girls, just to finish this discussion, one that go from bar to bar. We've had these kinds of complaints in Wilmington as well, or ones that are stationary at one bar, and they work up, and they work the situation with the cashier. There'll be male patrons there, and the woman will come over and say, start up a conversation, would you like to buy me a drink? She will then take the money to buy the drink, get the drink sold at a regular price, mark it up, keep the extra money, and deliver the drink. This is an illegal activity. So this was going on, the B-girl operation. Then there was the illegal dancing, people were dancing at the bar, dancing next to the tables, and dancing on a dance floor, which no CUX had been awarded for, and there was no dance permit awarded. There was a long history on this involving community organizations, involving the city attorney's office, who came up with a set of conditions, and the police department that came up with a set of conditions. I'm guessing that there was probably 18 months to 2 years of background operation on this. This was all put together, and the report was issued imposing conditions, not revoking the use, but imposing conditions on the operation of the business. And the appellant has argued those imposition of conditions on 5 points. And those 5 points are, let me take off my notes here. One, that the evidence does not support public nuisance. In the addition to these activities going on in the site, there were activities going on outside the business and in the surrounding area, which could not be linked directly to the business, but nonetheless illustrated the difficulty that this neighborhood was having. There was a shooting, there was a brandishing of a knife, and there was a gun found in one of the desks within the business itself. So the basis for the evidence supporting the fact that this is a public nuisance goes back to the police reports, the city attorney's efforts, the admitted B-girl operation, and the illegal dancing that took place here. From, I believe it was 2005 to 2007, the police logged 28 calls for service to this particular location. That's a very high number. The second action on the part of the appellant is that they're saying that there is no nexus between the crime statistics for the area and the site. In effect, that they are not contributory to the crime in the area here. We rely on the police department testimony, and we rely on the arrest reports that I have here, and if you'd like, I'd be glad to read those into the record, but there are half a dozen for the year 2007 to 2008. The third point in which the appellant contests the zoning report is a requirement to have videotaping and a security requirement, having security officers on the site. They say that there's no problem for this, but we look at the violence in the surrounding area, the applicant or the property owner's statement that he cannot control the B-girl activity, and the police reports, and the need in general for crime enforcement to rely on videotaping for identifying troublesome people or perpetrators. And we have imposed a requirement for videotaping and for security officers. Fourthly, the applicant or the property owner and operator are contesting the imposition of a $2,000 fee, recovery fee, that we place on all of these revocation actions in an attempt to compensate for the amount of time. This nowhere near comes back to the full cost recovery. There has been a full cost recovery ordinance passed by the city, which would be much more expensive than the $2,000, but we have not put administrative practices into place yet to collect those monies. The fifth point that is contested by the operator is that there is no need for a subsequent planning approval review of the effectiveness of these conditions. His argument is that the business is sufficiently trouble-free that there's no problem to take, there's no reason to take a look at this again. We just think on the face of that doesn't compute. And then the hours of operation, the operator states that the hours of operation are unclear, and the hours of operation are condition number 22, and I'll just read it, it's one sentence. The hours of operation shall be limited to 10 a.m. to 12 o'clock midnight, Sunday through Thursday, and 10 o'clock a.m. to 2 o'clock a.m. Friday and Saturday. It seems to me very straightforward. It's standard language that we use. So I would ask you to deny the appeal, to adopt the the Director of Planning's findings on this matter, and then also ask you to modify a clerical situation on the call out on the cover page. We call out the environmental clearance as ENV 2008-3095 MND. It should really be a categorical exemption. In addition, we would like to ask you to adopt the environmental clearance, which states that on July 25th, 2008, the project was issued a notice of exemption, Article Roman numeral 3, Section 3, City CEQA Guidelines, Log Reference ENV 2008-3095 CE for a categorical exemption, Class 21, Category 2, City CEQA Guidelines, Article 7, Section 1, State EIR Guidelines, Section 15100, which states that the adoption of an administrative decision or order enforcing or revoking the lease, permit, license, certificate, or other entitlement for use or enforcing the general rule, standard, or objective. Thank you very much, sir.
So, Dean, I know you've reviewed a few cases.
Few, sir.
How does this case, if you were to compare it to its impact?
I think that the version, this language that I state, I always try to put one colorful phrase in each report. And this colorful phrase on this one is that there's no denying that this is a rough bar.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Landini. All right, we do have with us Brandy Chappell from Councilwoman Jan Perry's office. While we are waiting, oh, she is here. Okay, good. All you got to do is the off button.
I know. I'm in a hearing. Leave me alone.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, council members and committee staff. My name is Brandy Chappell. I am a planning deputy for Council Member Jan Perry's office, and we're here to oppose the appeal that has been submitted to you by the owner of Los Amigos Bar. The council member supports the determination that was issued by zoning administrator Albert Landini outright, and she supports the recommendations of Newton Police Division, Vice Operations. There are continued problems at this location. There is continued criminal activity, and there has been further action undertaken by the State Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control that Newton Police Division will apprise you of. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Not a problem.
Okay, we have us with the police department. We have Brandon Mamret. Good afternoon, sir. Thank you for taking the time.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
Brandon Mamrot, currently assigned to Newton Division. The guidelines were to serve, the imposed conditions were to serve as guidelines strictly for the owner. There has been ongoing criminal activity since 2004. They're currently serving a 45-day suspension for solicitation of alcoholic beverages to patrons. They also served a 45-day suspension for the same activity, which was the B-Girl activity, back in 2005. There is an ongoing criminal activity going on there. The amount of radio calls that are generated over there is currently high. We had 3 undercover operations that were conducted at the facility last year for agreed-upon imposed conditions that were agreed upon between the owner and ourselves to go by. During that time, we saw a minimum of 3 to 5 being violated that were documented on declarations that were given to the city attorney and also the district attorney. It continues to go, the problems continue to exist, and the reason for these imposed conditions is to serve as a guideline for the owner to go by, and that's why they're currently imposed.
Okay. Now, I had, at the beginning of the Plum Committee, we had asked for item 6, so we didn't want to keep you waiting. Did we have you waiting here all afternoon?
No, it's all right. I'm working. It's fine.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure you guys are out of these facilities and out in the field, so.
Understandable.
I was hoping to address this item so that you wouldn't be waiting for us, so. But I thank you for your work and your report.
Okay.
Any questions? Okay. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for your hard work. We do have with us Armando Chavira. Or Chavira.
Chavira.
Okay, good.
Armando Chavira. My name is Armando Chavira. I'm an attorney, 20700 Ventura Boulevard, Suite 227, Woodland Hills, 91364. I've represented this particular bar for a number of years. Let me just say a few things. I've reduced the issues on appeal to two, both having to do with the economics of the conditions. But I just want to say that the police department presented a great deal of evidence. What they presented was that most of the problems in that area are caused by the Jack-in-the-Box. That has an overwhelming amount of calls for assistance over and above the Los Amigos bar. Second, there's two hotels in the area, high crime area. There's a public telephone on public property adjacent to this bar. It doesn't take a genius to figure out problems happen. The shooting, that was from the residential area spilling into the front of the bar. The knife incident, residential domestic dispute coming to the steps of the bar. No documented problems of violence within the structure or caused by this bar. The bar's been thrown into a category of bad bars. It's not. Believe me, I represent bad bars. This is not one of them.
I'm not sure that's good to say, but go ahead.
I represent probably over
I understand.
300 or 400 in the last
Okay.
25 years. The bar grill problem was admitted. The operator signed the stipulation with ABC. He's doing his downtime, suffering the suspension. Didn't contest it. What's a bar grill? Es una fichera. Have you heard of ficheras? These are ladies that go into bars. They ask to be bought a drink for companionship with the males in the bar. Now, the problems this bar has had have been few. One, no pool table permit. No permit for dancing, 2 or 3 couples dancing. The weapon in the back belonged to the manager, and it was in the desk, locked, one weapon, a few rounds, not a cache of weapons. And the fichera bar problem. Okay? That's it. The hotels breed prostitution. These people ply their trade at the phone by the bar. There's a back alley, as if it wasn't enough that there was hotels and high crime area. There's a back alley where transients sleep. This bar's been around for 47 years. Except for the bar grill situation, which has been stopped, it doesn't cause or contribute the kinds of problems that you see in that neighborhood. During the day, the whole area is fairly dead. These are the 2 points on appeal that we would like, that is the owner and operator, owner of the property, make as a point. First of all, the security guards recommended by the proposal are not a problem at all. But to have them during hours of operation, we're talking 11 to 8.
Okay.
There's just a few people coming in and out. Can't afford that.
Okay.
It eliminates the bar.
I'm hoping you will conclude. Are you finished?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, good.
And so we're just asking that the 2 security guards, the hours be changed 7 or 8 until closing.
Okay.
Okay, that's just one. 2, is there any way to streamline the plan approval? I've had some bids that are almost scary for a plan approval. Just wonder if we could dispense with any site plan, floor plan, that type of stuff. If we can't, we can't. But we stress again the security hours to begin at 8 p.m. And again, we don't think they're necessary, but if that's...
Mr. Chair,
that's it.
I appreciate what you're saying, but I will tell you that I have great confidence in Councilmember Perry and her staff. I know they're very diligent when it comes to quality of life issues in her district, and it's clear to me what the position is on this issue. Secondly, when I have the police here, where they state they've had three undercover operations in this facility, and to come forward with the recommendation holds a lot of weight. It's not just hearsay about Jack in the Box or the hotel. So I just wanted to give you my response to your presentation, and that's really where I'm at. And this is not a debate. You already made your presentation.
I understand. Everything else is acceptable.
Councilmember Weiss, did you want to say anything else? Okay, I don't want to, for our sake.
It's just that one simple change,
Okay.
that's it.
Okay, we're going to deny the appeal, and that'll be the action of this committee.
All right. Well, thanks for listening anyway.
Thank you, sir. Okay, anything else, Councilor? Anything else, Roberto? Don't open your eyes so much.
You promoted me. Public comment.
Okay, public comment, anyone? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.